Hello everyone, welcome to the class. Am I clearly audible and visible? Hi Sakshi, good evening Ayushi and Aditya, how are you all? Wait, let me just text in the Telegram group that we are live. Good evening Ashok sir. All right everyone, welcome to the class. Hi, good evening Aisha. I hope all of you are doing well. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the development of Indian psychology, how it came into existence, how we moved towards indigenization, etc. Let me just all right. Is my screen clearly visible to everyone? I think it must be zoomed in now. All right. So, hi. Today we will be starting off by discussing about various aspects, related to Indian psychology. We will be discussing about, how we moved towards development of Indian psychology. Wait, I don't know why it's not getting zoomed in. Just give me a moment. It is now. Okay. All right, everyone. So let's just start off by discussing about Indian psychology. So till now we have actually discussed, in detail about what is, you know, what are various Western philosophy. In yesterday's class, I also discussed that, there are various scriptures. Even I, highlighted about Bhagavad Gita, that Bhagavad Gita was one of the initial scriptures which are there, which are a support for counseling psychology, right? And there are a lot more Eastern philosophy like Hinduism, like Sufism, Islam, like, Buddhism, etc., which kind of talk about human psyche, how people are, how they behave, what should they do, etc. But we know that the Indian or the Eastern roots, okay, they are a little collectivistic in nature, right? When we talked about the Western philosophies, we learned that there are, people were focusing upon individual experiencing, understanding the experience, etc. Right? So it was more to do with explanation, description, trying to modify a person's behavior. But when you talk about Eastern philosophies or when you talk about Indian psychology, they are more focused upon transformation. They have a spiritual orientation. They now we also have a lot of newer techniques. We have a lot of, alternative therapies wherein there is inclusion of meditation, yoga, etc. So today we will be discussing about how Indian psychology came into being. Now, in yesterday's class, I discussed about, certain institutes which are key, wherein the Department of Psychology was actually established, and they are, key essential developments when we talk about expansion of those, different departments to a huge branch in itself, which is Indian psychology. So in the year 1905, there was a person named as Brojendra Nath Seal. right? So he basically wanted to, do certain experimental aspects, and till now psychology was still a part of philosophy. ठीक है? And he wrote the syllabus for experimental psychology, and he created this first psychological laboratory in India, wherein they wanted to demonstrate various, practical, aspects of psychology, etc. But still, it was a part of philosophy by then. So there's a person named as, I think, Ashutosh Mukherjee. He was the head of planning in Calcutta University at that moment, and he was very much impressed by, the whole demonstration lab, and, he was very much interested. Hence, he also suggested that we should start off a different department altogether. So, as we discussed yesterday, in the year 1916, the Department of Psychology, it was known as Experimental Psychology Department. It was established under the leadership of N. Sen Gupta, which is Narendranath Sen Gupta, at Calcutta University. And N. Sen Gupta is also, very active when we talk about various societies formation, when we talk about, research, etc. Right, so we are going to discuss about all of these factors all of these other aspects as we move forward. So now what happened, actually N. Sen Gupta actually left Calcutta University, and later on, I think Girendra Shekhar Bose actually took over as the head of the department for Calcutta University. Now, when we talk about Girendra Shekhar Bose, he was very much, interested in experimentation. He was a psychiatrist, he was a medical doctor basically, right? And he was also very much in contact with Sigmund Freud. So Girendra Shekhar Bose was the person who actually introduced psychoanalysis to India, right? He said that we should reject the universality of, how we look at psychoanalysis. The Freudian approach cannot be, promoted all over the world, right? So he formed his own Indian psychoanalytical society, which is a key step in development of Indian psychoanalysis, right? So as I said, Girendra Shekhar Bose took over as the second HOD of the Department of University of Calcutta, and he did a lot of work. He was the first Indian to get a, PhD in India, wherein, like, from any Indian university. A lot of people went outside. Even when we talk about N. Sen Gupta, he worked, I think he worked under Hugo Mustenberg, etc. Right? Yes, Sakshi, you must choose 1916. Okay, that was the year when this department was established. Chaliye. So therein a lot of people, started to get interested in this whole aspect. He also kind of led this Calcutta University ka department under, he started this applied psychology wing in that department as well. He also, established this mental hospital, which is Lumbini Mental Hospital. He also started off a journal, right, which is Samiksha Journal. And we know that later a lot of other universities, like, University of Mysore, Patna, all of those actually also came into existence. Okay? So these are the psychological department, various psychology departments. Firstly, in the year 1916, University of Calcutta, under the leadership of N. Sen Gupta. Okay, we have also read about the second HOD, which was Girendra Shekhar Bose. Okay, and we will also read about him in, a little more detail when we talk about various organization and various journals being set up. Then comes Mysore University in the year 1912 under the leadership of M.P. Gopalaswamy. A lot of people actually consider G.S. Bose and, this N. Sen Gupta, G.S. Bose and M.V. Gopalaswamy as one of the initial people or founders of Indian psychology. Initial era of Indian psychology. They were the one who actually laid this foundation for that. Then comes University of Madras in the year 1943 under the leadership of G.D. Bose. G.D. Bose also worked alongside Girendra Shekhar Bose. Then comes University of Patna. University of Patna, I think at that time there was somebody named as Esben, who was the HOD, but there are a lot of other people, influential psychologists from who are related to Patna University, like Durganand Sinha. There is a person named as S.M. Mohsin. You must have read about him. That he was the one who actually made this Bihar intelligence test, and he was also very much interested in intelligence testing. Charles Pierre-Mency was very inspired. Then comes 1950, Pune University under the guidance of V.K. Thurkar. Okay, and at last we read that NIMHANS, which was then known as All India Institute of Mental Health, it was founded in 1955. So basically there were this is managed by Ministry of Health, I guess, right? So therein under one wing they started to offer courses or training programs related to psychology, and we know that later on the All India Mental Health Institute and the mental hospital, they were amalgamated to create NIMHANS as we know today in the year 1974. Okay. Now comes we also need to remember the early centers which were there, or the journals which were there, which were very important for the initial setup of Indian psychology. Okay, so in 1922, as I mentioned, when Girendra Shekhar Bose took over the department, he worked a lot in regard to psychoanalysis, right? So he formed this Indian Psychoanalysis Society in the year 1922. Then Indian Science Congress was already there. Therein in the year 1923, psychology was established as a separate section in that particular organization. Then Indian Psychological Association was founded in 1924. In the same year, the organization of Girendra Shekhar Bose was affiliated with the International Psychoanalytical Society. Then, as we discussed, the first psychology journal in India, which is Indian Journal of Psychology, was published in the year 1925, and I think N.N. Sengupta was one of the editors, early editor, one of the first editor of that particular journal. Then Girendra Shekhar Bose also established this Lumbini Park Mental Health Hospital in Calcutta. Then he, in the year 1947, UP Psychological Bureau was established, and Girendra Shekhar Bose also brought out a journal named as Samiksha. Okay. Psychology, initially in the Defense Science Organization, Psychological Research Wing was also established. Then at last in 1956, UGC was constituted, and it started to provide various funds, and after that there was no looking back. There was establishment of a lot of other institutes later in 1990s, etc., wherein people started to get funds for research in the field of psychology, etc. Okay, but these are some key institutes that you need to remember. Okay, you can be asked the sequence, you can be asked the years which are associated, etc. These are main. There are a lot more which are there, but these are the major ones that you need to remember. Okay, now along with this class, I will be updating a handout sheet wherein about there will be certain description of some Indian psychologists like Durganand Sinha, like N.N. Gupta, etc. would be given, but that would be a reading material. You should go by that just in case if you are asked any specific question about them. Okay, वैसे these are the main things which you need to go through. Now, coming back to the development of Indian psychology. Okay, now we have read that, before the pre-independence era, we read that there were, certain universities like, Calcutta University, Mysore University, University of Patna, etc., they started to set up their own departments, right? And Girendra Shekhar Bose also worked a lot in regard to the psychoanalysis. He also affiliated with the International Psychoanalytical Society. But still, herein there was a huge influence of Western ideas, the Western understanding of society, Western understanding of psychology. If you remember, in yesterday's class, I discussed that a lot of universities started to offer philosophy and then psychology as a course, but there was direct impact, from the West because of the Britishers' rule in India. So the education was made in such a way that they were getting influenced by the Western ideas. Even a lot of people went outside, like an insane Gupta, even Girendra Shekhar Bose was very much closely associated with Freud, right? So we know that still, even though psychology has started to come up here, departments are getting established, but still they are under the wing of what do we say, Britishers' perspective, or westernization is still there for psychology. Okay. In general, Arshia, when we say the father of Indian psychology, a lot of people refer Girendra Shekhar Bose as the father of modern Indian psychology or Indian psychoanalysis. Okay. But a lot of people, they do not credit just one person. They credit N.N. Sen Gupta, Z.D. Bose and Girendra Shekhar Bose as well. ठीक है, बट हाँ, अगर स्पेसिफिक एक ही नाम चूज करना है, देन वी विल चूज गिरेंद्र शेखर बॉस, बिकॉज ही kind of promoted a lot. He was influential, even when we talk about journal, even when we talk about societies, even when we talk about getting international affiliations, etc. Okay, but there were a lot more people alongside. Now, what started to happen after the post-independence era, like around, early 50s, what started to happen, that people were, even though there were people who were getting interested in Western aspect of psychology, right? But they were kind of compartmentalizing, that there is Western psychology, but there were also personal cultural interest of the people who were there. So what started to happen, people started to feel that, even though we are studying psychology, even though we are studying about how to deal with, people, but we are not able to engage or align it with the social or political issues which are also there. Okay, even at that time, there was not a lot of, like UGC was not established, ICSSR was also not funding at the moment, other institutes also, they were not funding psychology as such. So there was a lot of confusion between what is there, what should be there, what should we do, etc. Okay, even when we talk about Girendra Shekhar Bose, he also started to question here about the universality of Freudian psychoanalysis, right? He said that it might not be very much applicable on our culture, the way we are, and our culture is framed in a very different way. There might be similar constructs, but the application of it will be very different to Indian society. So what started to happen, there was crisis of identity, because the Western ideas or the Western ideology of psychology was not fitting in our, what do we say, culture, but still there was not a lot of work which was done on the indigenization of these topics, aspects. So now what started to happen, as the department started to rise up, even by around 1960s, there were around 32 departments which were established by 1960s in India, which were all initially a part of philosophy, and they started to split up, expansion started to happen. In this area, people started to adapt theories and specifically tests. You might have seen a lot of, Indian version of the test, okay? Even when we talk about what do we say? Even when we talk about the intelligence test, people were getting very influenced by that. People started to, India adapt that according to our culture. Okay, there were a lot of adaptation of personality tests, intelligence tests, etc., which are there. Okay, so you can say that during this time of 50s to 70s, there was a crisis of identity, where we stand, etc. Okay, and at that time, a lot of people started to say that psychology in India is kind of becoming adoptology, okay, or it is just very dull or replicative, that we are just replicating whatever has been done in the West. We are trying to fit in here, we are trying to adopt their ideas, etc. So there was a call for the cultural roots. There was a need for indigenization of these psychological aspects. We needed to adapt in face of those Western culture. We needed to give some credit to our Eastern influences which are there, etc. Okay, so that was started to happen. Okay, now coming to indigenization, so what started to happen? People started to adopt our ancient scriptures. People started to adopt the orthodox schools like Shardarshana, Sankhya philosophy, Vedanta, Buddhism, Sufism, etc. We started to take away from our various philosophical tests the various practices like Ashtanga yoga. There was development of newer concept like integral yoga. Okay, you must have heard about Shri Aurobindo. He introduced like this integral yoga. So people started to develop these new concepts, and it is believed that indigenization happened either to solve any sort of problem. Okay, for example, we tried to apply psychology to Indian issues, which led to indigenization, or cross-cultural psychology, wherein we were trying to test out the Western theories which are already there, and which are already there, and we wanted to test whether it works in India or it doesn't work in India, etc. And at last, Indian psychology, wherein we tried to explore the traditional knowledge and spiritual practices which are there in India. So Durganand Sinha, in the year 1994, he discussed about indigenization in a lot of detail, right? And he said that indigenization is of two types. Either it is endogenous or it is exogenous. Now, what do we mean by these terms? Endogenous is basically that we are trying to take something from the West and we are trying to introduce it, okay, into our own culture. We are trying to do that. Those are kind of culture bound, okay. And herein we also would see that how they are different than that of Western philosophies, okay. So in endogenous, this one is how we are trying to associate the Western philosophies in India, how we are able to apply those Western philosophies, principles in Indian construct. And the exogenous part was basically that we have also taken into consideration the aspects which are there or not there. Okay? So to talk about in detail, exogenous would include the outside perspective of problem solving and cross-cultural identification. We will try to identify which theory works with us or which theory do not work with us. And in endogenous, we are kind of strict. Okay? This is a very rigid approach, wherein we are only and only trying to explore the cultural aspect, whereas this is flexible in nature. Okay, because we are also taking into account the Western theories, the method, the concept, the theories, etc., which were introduced later, and it was later on explained by Durganand Sinha. Okay, so what is indigenization? Indigenization is adaptation of theory, concept, various aspect, etc., in regard to which will be applicable in India. And Durganand Sinha actually said that indigenization can be of two types. It can be endogenous or it can be exogenous. Okay, so this endogenous, wait, you might not be able to see what I've written. Okay, so when we talk about endogenous, we know that it is a little strict in nature. It means that we are only going to take into account our scriptures, our concepts, etc. Hence, it would be a little culture bound also. But when we talk about exogenous, you can remember X with the help of external, outside related. Okay? So here we would also consider the variables, the concepts, the theories, methods, etc., which are introduced outside, and we will try to see. So this problem oriented and cross cultural will be a type of exogenous indigenization, whereas this will be solely related to endogenous indigenization. Clear? Now you tell me if you are clear with what is indigenization, what is exogenous indigenization, and what is endogenous indigenization. X, you can remember it with external. So we are taking into account the external perspectives, the methods, the technique, the theories which were there. Endogenous is bound. Okay, it is culturally bound, it is strict. So we will be exploring our ancient cultures, scriptures, etc. Clear? If you have any doubt anywhere, then please let me know. Then we will move ahead further. Clear? Yes, no, something. Clear. ठीक है. Moving ahead to establishment of Indian psychology. Now, what did we do till now? We began from, the pre-independence era. What happened in that era? There was development of departments, but still there was a lot of huge, there was huge influence from West. Okay? Then we moved towards the post-independence era, which was an era of crisis, right? Early 50s, 60s, etc. Wherein people were in dilemma. Okay? When we talk about the Western's perspective, then it is not well suited. And when we talk about the Eastern philosophy of, our scriptures, or maybe, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., they seemed a little metaphysical in nature, right? People said that we do not know. They talked a lot about soul, they talked a lot about spirituality, etc. So people were kind of dilemma, they were in crisis. So what started to happen in that era? Okay, adoption of tests. Okay, so we started to adapt those tests, and specifically a lot of adaptation was done in regard to intelligence and personality testing. But still there is a lot more influence, or Western influences still there. Okay? Now we just discussed about indigenization. Okay, wherein total adoption of the Eastern perspective, the ancient scriptures, etc., was also there. And finally, Indian psychology was established as a separate branch of psychology, which is there. Okay, so in the year 2002, there was a conference in Pondicherry wherein there was this manifesto of Indian psychology was introduced, and it was officially recognized as a branch of psychology. Okay, now they said Indian psychology will focus. Okay, so they have said that we will take both. We will take what has been said in the West, and we would try to indigenize that as well. We will try to use the Eastern's perspective as well. We will take into account the ancient scriptures, the philosophies, the various aspects or the methods which are there, etc. Okay. So they said that Indian psychology is characterized by focus on inner self. Have you all read about Sankhya philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, etc.? Have you all heard about that? Anybody? Yes, no, something. Okay. So basically, in very layman terms, I will try to explain. Okay, so when we talk about these various philosophies, right? So what happens is in Indian, scriptures or these philosophies are related to Hinduism. Okay, so what happens there in Sankhya philosophy? We talk about integration of Purusha with Prakriti. We talk about our Triguna. We talk about our Tridoshas, etc. We talk about how this union will let us understand about the reality which is there. There are other schools of philosophy like Advaita Vedanta, wherein we believe that we are a Atma and we need to get merged with the eternal reality which is the Brahman, etc. So they talked a lot in regard to understanding our inner self. There are various aspects, in your masters. I think you will all learn about that, or net ka to it is a part of the syllabus. Okay, so herein there was a lot of focus which was given on the inner self, development of that inner self. Even when we talk about Buddhism, you might have read about the story of Lord Buddha, that how he got enlightened, how he moved ahead. He also prescribed the eightfold path which is there. He said dukha is a part of everybody's, right, everybody's life. We should let go of the aversion, the attachments, etc. Right, that I think everybody must have read about the story of Lord Buddha, right? So all the Indian philosophies, all the Eastern philosophies or scriptures focused upon improvement of that inner self, getting you know to understand one's consciousness. Even when we talk about Advaita Vedanta, they believe that we are in illusion, we are surrounded by Maya, and we need to break down, we need to let go of that Maya. Only then we can understand the eternal reality which is there. So you can see, you can basically understand from these examples that there's a lot of focus which is given on the inner self which is there, right? And consciousness. Okay, they also believed that we should uh, indulge into various methods. We also talk about purusharthas, meaning of a person life, what should they do, etc. And there were subjective methods also which were there. Okay, so as I said that there are various darshanas which are there. Even when we talk about Hinduism school, there were Shad Darshanas, which are the 6 orthodox philosophy. We also have newer, unorthodox philosophies which are there, like Nyay, like other philosophies which are there. So there are subjective methods. What suits you? So what does it try to do? It tries to understand and transform the individual. It tries to emphasize that we should pursue, we should try to give meaning to our life. We should try to be perfect. We should try to get merged with the eternal being which is there. So a lot of people said that this Indian school is universally applicable. Okay, it does not have the limitations which are there in the Western schools which are there. Okay, now coming to it had spiritual orientation, obviously. Okay, it talks about the spirituality, it talks about human progression, it talks about it does not relate it with one faith or one, or maybe Hinduism, Sufism, Buddhism, etc. It does not says about that, but it serves as a secular account of human nature. It talks about the transcendental knowledge that a person needs to understand, the Paravidya which is there. Okay, then the methods which are there in Indian psychology are veridical in nature. It means they actually work. They are kind of subjective. They are application based. They are practical in nature. Okay, so herein you will see that these methods lie a lot in regard to self observation or direct observation, which are taking into account both the perspective, the first person and the second person perspective. There are a lot of methods like yoga, meditation, etc., which are talking about, improvement or transformation of an individual, etc. It also has applied orientation. As I said, practicality is important there. So if we want to transform the individual, if we want to, transform them to a level wherein they understand that, we should get merged with the eternal reality, we should let go of the dukha which is there, we should follow a certain path, we should try to attain transcendental knowledge. So therein they prescribe a lot of application based, they give practical solutions, right? And these, even in this applied orientation, it seeks to help individual transcend from the conditioned thinking to a state of freedom, right? It is kind of also aligned with the contemporary knowledge which is there. Okay, for example, for example, as I just said, there is a lot of spiritual orientation, but along with that, they are not letting go of the Western aspects which are useful for them. So it is also aligned with the contemporary perspective, and in addition, it also has a transformation orientation. Okay, so in today's class we have read about how psychology started off, wherein the first psychological lab was established. Then, because of the traction that it got, Ashutosh Mukherjee, who was the planning head of Calcutta University, he said that we should also introduce a separate department, and Insane Gupta became the, head of that department, which led to development of several institutes, several departments along, across India. There was Department of Mysore, Patna, a lot of other departments were also established. By 1960s there were like 32 departments which were set up across India. And we saw that how there was this crisis of identity, how we started to indigenize certain aspect. We also read about the endogenous and exogenous indigenization, right? Okay, now I'll ask you two, three questions. Wait, just give me a moment. Wait, why it's not getting updated? Just give me a moment. Hmm. All right. So, as I said, that you need to remember certain key points. So, you all tell me who established the first Indian lab? Who was the person who established the first Indian psychological laboratory? Everyone, please type in quickly. All right, a lot of people answer different things. Very good, Sakshi. It was Brojanendra Nath Seal who established the first lab. ठीक है? In the year 1905. Brojanendra Nath Seal. Then we talk about first psychology department. Who established the first psychology department and the year? Everyone. Very good. N.N. Sen Gupta in the year 1916 actually founded this lab. Now, who is known as the founder of Indian psychoanalysis? Quickly, who is known as the founder of Indian psychoanalysis? देखो, नोट्स के लिए स्लाइड में जो दिया है सब कुछ लिखना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, बट जो की चीज़ें हैं जैसे जो अभी हम यहाँ लिख रहे हैं ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, जो सीक्वेंस है वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. ठीक है. वेरी गुड एवरीवन. जीएस बॉस गिरेंद्र शेखर बॉस. ठीक है. he is the founder of Indian psychoanalysis. Now founder of Indian psychology. Who will be regarded as the founder, initial founders of Indian psychology? Who was it? N.N. Sen Gupta, G.D. Bose, not G.S. Bose, G.D. Bose. ठीक है. So N.N. Sen Gupta along with G.D. Bose. ठीक है. So this is very important. You should know, that Girendra Shekhar Bose has done a lot of work in psychoanalysis. He founded the Indian Psychoanalytical Society in 1922. He also founded this Lumbini Mental Hospital. Lumbini Park Mental Hospital in the year 1940. He launched Samiksha Journal in 1947. So G.S. Bose has contributed a lot to formation of Indian psychology, what it is today, and the initial work. A lot of work was done by G.S. Bose. ठीक है. Clear? If you have any query anywhere in what we have discussed in today's class, please let me know. साक्षी इज आस्किंग व्हाई जीडी बॉस. देखो, जीडी बॉस को हम इसलिए इंक्लूड करते हैं बिकॉज इनिशियली व्हेन दी मैसूर यूनिवर्सिटी was established, so he along with N.N. Sen Gupta, they were very influential at that time, and they which influenced the other departments to be formed, established, etc. ठीक है. बट हाँ, अगर ऑप्शन में N.N. Sen Gupta है और GD Bose है तो आप N.N. Sen Gupta को करोगे. ठीक है. In GATE exam you will see a lot of question wherein they give you names of various Indian psychologists, and they might ask you to choose people who have contributed to Indian psychology. ठीक है. So there are a lot more people. There is C.M. Bhatia, there is S.M. Mohsin, there is Durganand Sinha, there is Paranjape, there is a lot of other people. Like even when we talk about N. N. Gupta, N. N. Gupta also wrote a lot in regard to attitudes. You know, he along with I think Radha Krishna, some Mukherjee, I guess. Okay, so he also wrote about this social psychology ka book, etc. Okay, so therein a lot of people are there which are associated. Hence, I said that I will be attaching one. What do we say? Handout which has basic description of these Indian psychologists which are there. Okay, so you should know about it. Aisha, there's no mention of a lot of women in psychology in India जो इनिशियली जिन्होंने ज़्यादा डेवलपमेंट में किया हो, तो इतना नहीं है. ठीक है, we also have JP Durganand, we also have a lot of people who introduced uh, who worked a lot in leadership, etc. ठीक है, so please read on that. I will add like 2-3 line का introduction for these people, and you should kind of at least know about them and their work in like a line. कुछ theory नहीं आएगी, you would not be asked which theory was told by what, which they talked about, etc. But you should just have basic idea about who did what, who said what, etc. ठीक है, and with that we are done with the 3 units which are there in the syllabus. We are done with introduction, we are done with history, we are done with schools of psychology. And also I think somebody was also asking me, ma'am, when we will start with starts, etc. So I think right now, just after this class, I will be dropping this poll in the group, um, wherein there would be I would be asking ki you would want me to start with stats or research right away, or you want me to complete the other units and then jump on to research, because research, etc. are very large unit, and I think it would take us like 10 classes, at least 10 classes to get done with research, and others we can get done quickly. मतलब एक एक यूनिट हमारी ऐसे 4 क्लास में 5 क्लास में हो जाएगी. So I wanted कि कुछ तो जैसे इमोशन है, मोटिवेशन है, they take like 1 maximum 2 class each. So you tell me what you prefer. पोल में रिस्पॉन्ड कर देना, so that I also understand. मुझे ऐसा लगा कि तुम ज़्यादा कोर्स कवर करना चाहोगे तो, but I saw a lot of people said research yesterday, so I'm still confused. You tell me. I have both the content ready. We can start with anything anytime. Ayushi is saying, मैम इंडिजिनस भी नहीं आएगा. देखो, आने को तो कुछ भी आ सकता है, ठीक है, क्योंकि CUET PG ने कोई सिलेबस नहीं दिया है, एंड वी आर काइंड ऑफ अज्यूमिंग कि ऑल दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. ये DU के सिलेबस में ऑलरेडी एडेड है. जामिया में ये सब पूछा जाता था लास्ट ईयर्स के PYQ जो है CUET के, उनके बेसिस पे हम सिलेबस अज्यूम कर रहे हैं. थोड़ा गेट का जो सिलेबस है उससे हम अज्यूम करें कि ठीक है, दीज ऑल थिंग्स कैन कम. So you don't know, okay? We do not really know the scope of the syllabus. So instead of going a lot in depth about everything, we should try to cover the breadth of the paper and do a lot of practice. ठीक है, जो मैक्सिमम वेस्टर्न एस्पेक्ट्स हैं वो तो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, जो मेजर इंडियन साइकोलॉजी के की पॉइंट्स हैं, माइलस्टोन्स हैं, जर्नल हैं, या फिर सोसाइटीज़ हैं, दैट इज़ ऑल्सो व्हाट वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इन आवर क्लास. तो आई वांटेड कि तुम एक बार वो इंडियन साइकोलॉजिस्ट के बारे में भी थोड़ा सा पढ़ लो. आई ऑल्सो रीड अ लिटिल अबाउट द वुमेन हु आर देयर. देयर मस्ट बी फ्यू पीपल हु आर देयर. आई रीड ऑन दैट. ठीक है, इट वुड बी इंटरेस्टिंग टू नो. ठीक है, साक्षी इज सेइंग, मैम आई वांटेड टू आस्क हाउ टू चूज द टॉपिक फॉर डिसर्टेशन. Sakshi, that is a whole workshop altogether. ठीक है, also I'm trying मतलब अभी वैसे we are done with the class. Those who want to leave they can leave. अभी I'm discussing about other things. So what I was saying was कि when we talk about this dissertation or all these other things, a lot of students, I think 2-3 more students also texted me that they also want to do research, they want to do dissertation, how to go about it, what is the first step, etc, etc. So maybe we can do some webinars, or we can do some things wherein maybe I can help you with the proposal, or maybe we can do something like that. तो हाँ, but it would not be done in one class, या फिर वो एक basic 30-minute thing नहीं है. You would require some effort. So if a lot of you will be interested, then maybe I can plan something which will be like nominal उसका fee होगा, and then we can do that. ठीक है, चलिए, that's it for today's class. अगर आपको कुछ और query है, if you would like to ask anything else, then please let me know, then we will wrap our class for today. Clear? All right, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care. If you like the class, then please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you all tomorrow, and please respond to the poll. I'm just putting it right now. ठीक है, चलिए. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.